What's happening in Israel does not pose a hot war threat to the United States. I do not believe that.
Okay.
Because Israel is already making decisions that America has distanced itself from, right? As Netanyahu's continually pushed the Palestinian people through the auspices of saying he's attacking Hamas, but killing Palestinians, right? He's forced America to distance ourselves. And then he continues to push south into Rafah, which is like, that threatens the International Criminal Court of the UN, which is a governing body that that Israel's part of.
Yeah.
And now he's also talking about potentially forcing conflict into Lebanon. And not just Netanyahu, but Benny Gantz too, who left Yahu's war cabinet, or Netanyahu's war cabinet, right? So what you're seeing is Israel is making its own decisions. It's not playing as part of a large international community. That benefits the international community because now they can basically choose if and when they ever get involved. Or they can let Israel die on its sword, right? That's kind of where they're at right now.
Would we let Israel die on a sword though? Because they're basically a client state, even though it does seem like they actually control us through all of the lobbying and the AIPAC money.
It's a twisted relationship. You're totally right. It's a twisted relationship. We would not let them die on the sword, but we would always step in to find a way to prevent them from a full loss, right? But what we don't necessarily have to do is put ourselves at risk or at mercy of their bad policies right now.
Yeah.
So the thing to understand about what's happening as this conflict escalates.
Yeah.
The conflict is not between Israel and Hamas. It has never been between Israel and Hamas, right? That's why Israel has been okay killing Palestinians who are not part of Hamas.
Right.
And that's why Palestinians around the world and Muslims around the world are claiming outrage at what's happening, because the conflict has never been between Israel and Palestine or Israel and Hamas. It's been between Israel and Iran.
Right. Yeah.
Well, you know who else Iran funds? Hezbollah.
Yeah.
Right? So why is Hezbollah amplifying their attacks against Israel? It's because Joe Biden and the Biden administration have been trying to negotiate with Saudi Arabia to get Saudi Arabia to sign the Abraham Accords. The Abraham Accords are basically Saudi Arabia, the largest, wealthiest Sunni Muslim government in the region.
Right.
The Abraham Accords are their diplomatic recognition of Israel, which has never happened before, right?
Right. It's wild.
It's huge. Yeah. So the reason the attacks happened on October 7th was to dismantle the Abraham Accords. Now, Joe Biden has been making real progress in getting Saudi Arabia to sign the Abraham Accords again. Do you know what it was in exchange of? In exchange of American security guarantees in Saudi Arabia. So essentially, Saudi Arabia is sitting there and they're thinking, Saudi Arabia's number one threat is Iran. Like it's
Iran.
It's a battle for influence in the Gulf. Sunni Islam versus Shia Islam.
But I've heard that they're actually they're with each other now.
They do. They're allies too.
Yo, I don't get what's going on.
Because
you're blowing my mind,
in
Andy.
Saudi Arabia, in the Middle East, everything's different than in the West, right? So you've got to put yourself in the shoes of somebody who's a Bedouin. The sandals of somebody from the Middle East, right?
Yeah.
Saudi Arabia has no agriculture. They have dates and they have coffee, and that's basically it. Iran is the breadbasket for the Middle East. So nobody in the Middle East eats unless Iran grows the produce.
I see.
So they all cooperate so they can get Iranian food. Right. I don't know if you knew this or not. We have carve-outs in the United States where we still cooperate with the Russians. Even now.
No.
There are all sorts of carve-outs in our space program, in our science programs, in our medical programs where we're like, we hate Russia, except for the people who do space, and the people who do medicine, and the people who are in charge of this, and the people who are, so we have carve-outs that allow us to still work with Russia.
So there's Americans that are in government that are still working with Russians in the Russian government.
Yep.
Wow.
Which is why, of course, Putin's talking to somebody, right?
Yeah.
And it's the same way between Saudi Arabia and Iran.
I see.
And all the Gulf countries, right? But at the end of the day, the strategic objective of Saudi Arabia is to become the Sunni sphere of influence across all the Middle East. And the same objective that Iran has always had to create the Shia crescent of influence has always been there, right? So when you talk about Hezbollah, Hezbollah is an organization of Shia Muslim extremists, just like Iran. But Hamas is Sunni Islam, just like Saudi Arabia.
So yet the Shias are helping the Sunnis
to with Israel.
Right.
Exactly right. So
we
what
all
that
just
means,
don't like Jews.
Well, it's not about Judaism. That's the other thing that people do wrong, right? The conflict that's happening in Israel has nothing to do with Judaism.
It's about land.
It's about land.
Yeah.
It's about the fact that Israel is a state. It's a nation state that is abusing and oppressing other free human beings.
That's right.
It has nothing to do with Islam. It has nothing to do with Judaism.
No.
But the problem is that Israel, as much of a democracy and a partner to the U.S. as we told it, does not have the separation of church and state.
That's right. It was built to be a Jewish state, an ethno state. So I think nobody should be surprised at their dream of ethnic cleansing. Like literally, if you want to have a Jewish state, that means you can't have
anything else.
Anything else.
Yep. And it's part of the government, right?
Wow.
So that's what we're seeing is so much more complex than it looks.
Yeah.
And it's way more complex than what American headlines let you read because they're all slanted. So now what you have is this very dangerous intersection. Just think about this. What happens if the kingdom of Saudi Arabia, who Joe Biden called a pariah state during his election cycle, remember that?
Yeah.
He swore in 2019 that he would hold Saudi Arabia accountable for its pariah actions, killing Khashoggi, that it's going to be called to justice. Now, 4 years later, he's trying to get them to sign an American security treaty similar to what we have with South Korea and Japan, guaranteeing Saudi Arabia's security with American military power. That is up. Now, from Saudi Arabia's point of view, they're like, it's a win-win because they can still import from Iran. But now if Iran does anything against Saudi Arabia, Saudi Arabia gets all of their military power, which is significant, and all of the American military power. And all they have to do is recognize Israel. However, Saudi Arabia also knows that if they recognize Israel in its current state, then they're basically abandoning the Palestinians, which are Sunni Muslims who have been without a home, right? What's really happening here is what the Human Rights Commission and what the International Criminal Court and what the UN has seen for decades.
Of course.
Israel has been wrong in their abuse of Palestinians forever.
Right.
But it never was really something that people cared about because we didn't have the technology to spread the information like we do now.
Kind of goes back to my point about the evolution of, humanity that I spoke about, and the way that technology allows us to be outraged at 37,000 people getting killed. Dude, they used to do that back in the 20th century. That was like a Friday night.
Yeah.
That was nothing. It would take millions of people killed in a genocide for us to be like, oh, we should probably go to war to stop this. We should stop this. But now it's like, it's actually what gives me hope, to be honest with you. So does this, it certainly seems more volatile when you're talking about hot war, but you actually don't see this. You don't see a situation like Douglas McGregor. He says, worst case scenario is Hezbollah gets in a full-on campaign with Israel. Iran has to step in because they won't let Israel destroy Hezbollah. That leads to full-on war with Iran and Israel. And then Russia has to step in to not let Iran get destroyed by Israel. And that brings in the United States.
It'll de-escalate before that.
It'll de-escalate. Okay.
Yeah. So there's a couple things to keep in mind, right? Hezbollah is older than Hamas by just a few years, but Hezbollah is significantly larger, better trained, better funded, better experienced because they fought in Syria. Hezbollah is a fighting force. Hamas didn't fight anywhere. Hamas only ever existed in the Gaza Strip. Right. They only ever existed on the land that is considered Israel. Right. They're not hardened fighters. They're extremists and they have some rockets that they build at home. That's completely different than the armament and the training that Hezbollah has. Israel's been spending very real time, money, effort. It's lost real lives. It's stretched its logistics chains as far as it can, just fighting Hamas and killing Palestinians. To the south. Now it's splitting its forces to the north and the south to fight a more adept, better trained, more highly equipped military without actually fixing the problems with Hamas. So now Iran as a proxy provider can fund both the North and the South simultaneously, while Israel just continues to stretch itself thin and not gain support from the rest of the world, because they're going to keep killing Palestinians.
Yeah.
They're trying to say, oh, well, now we're fighting Hezbollah. But as soon as they start fighting Hezbollah, Hamas leadership is going to come right back up and start fighting again. And they're going to go right back to bombing Palestinians, killing medical providers and women and children, right? So they're going to get stuck in this situation where they don't have incoming support, but they are spending real resources. Fighting a war on two fronts is it's a strategic doctrinal strategy that's taught at the Army War College and Naval War College all across the Western world. You do not fight a war on two fronts, because you're guaranteed to lose. That's exactly what Israel's doing right now if they continue to pursue this approach. What's more likely going to happen is at some point Israel is going to claim big victories to the north and south, agree to a ceasefire, and then we'll be able to go back, hopefully, to talking about a two-state solution if Netanyahu is successfully elected and voted out. Unfortunately, because of Netanyahu's position, the thing that's more likely, it's unlikely Netanyahu is going to be the leader when a ceasefire is called.
It might be the more radical people in the government.
Because whatever happens, Netanyahu, just like Zelensky, Netanyahu's political career is over. Once the war ends, Netanyahu's gone. Netanyahu might be voted off before the war even ends. Zelensky's the same way. Once the war ends, Zelensky's gone.
Do you see Trump, if nothing else, because a lot of his policies are the exact same to Joe Biden. That's what they don't tell you, is like there really isn't much difference, at least fiscally. A lot of the other that they do, you know, migrants at the border. But do you see him forcing an end to the two conflicts, those two big conflicts right now, Russia and the Middle East?
So this is what's sick and sad and true about how things work. If Joe Biden has spent 4 years planning or being advised down this road, he can't change his mind without looking weak. Trump, if he gets into office, he calls Netanyahu. He's like, here's the deal, dude. Like, I'm going to give you $15 million in contracts. You're going to leave the Israeli government and you're going to go live out your days in Switzerland and you're going to be okay with that. And then he calls up the Ayatollah in Iran and he's like, here's the deal, dude. We're going to lift sanctions on your nuclear program. And all you're going to do is call off Hezbollah and then boom, it's done. That's it.
That's all he has to do.
That's all he has to do. And Trump will do it because Trump is pragmatic,
of course,
practical, and all he wants is to look strong in the first few days in office.
Of course.
Biden isn't pragmatic. He's ideological. He isn't independently driven. He's driven by a party because he's been a party politician forever. Right? He can't make those calls. If he makes those calls today, then what the was the last 4 years for, Joe? Right? It's tough.
And then what does Trump do with Putin?
So Trump and Putin have already had, like, there's already relationships between the two of them.
They're boys. They text.
Well, not only, I mean, whether or not they're close friends or not,
but they
know how the two of them, they both know how it works. So that could be a third phone call where he's like, here's the deal, dude. Zelensky's going to live out his days on Miami Beach. I will give you, like, once every 3 years, I'll tell you what address he's at. Right? But otherwise, you pick a shadow government for Ukraine, as long as we get to rebuild Ukraine and you get to keep all the oil and all the geographic benefits of Eastern Ukraine. Right. If you just stop, I'll tell Zelensky to stop today. Like the whole world, all the conflict could be over in a matter of like 72 hours.
It's all a game. It's all a game to the politicians.
Correct. To all of us, it's about ideology, what's right, what's wrong, feelings, what's good, what's bad.
What's in my heart, right. To them, it's like, no, it's just what is practical, pragmatic to maintain power and maybe do what's best, gain an advantage for their own countries.
Economically. America needs a return on investment for Ukraine. Russia needs to get its money back that was taken from it for Ukraine. Right. India, China, North Korea are going to keep doing whatever they're going to do. But we're going to hope that by stopping the Russian war machine, Russia's economy will fall. Russia's economy is booming because it's a war machine economy, just like ours in World War II. Once the war ends, all that production is going to go down, and then it's going to become more of a drain on its allies in the East. So
it's actually a good thing for us to stop the war.
Right. But that's why Russia is trying to like build relationships with Iran or with India and with China to try to hold that up afterwards.
How could you possibly vote for Joe Biden again? How could you possibly? It is so crazy. Okay. Andy, you're blowing my mind, brother.
Well, because if you don't vote for Joe Biden, you either don't vote or you have to vote for Donald Trump.
What do you think about RFK? Do you give that any veracity? Do you give that any hope?
I mean, there is a possibility. There is even a probability that RFK finds his way in there somehow, right? Either Joe Biden decides to do some weird sort of last minute nomination or who knows what, right? Or he has some sort of mental episode and Kamala Harris still decides to make it RFK. Who knows? But
you don't think he could get elected by a vote?
I don't think the Democratic National Convention would even risk it.
Right.
Because RFK's crazy too, right?
Yeah.
He still thinks the CIA killed his dad and they're after him. Could you imagine that guy as the executive?
Yeah, man. He's not electable.
And even if he did become president, oh my gosh, think about what the rest of the world would think. Are we really a free democracy when a Kennedy takes office?
Right.
Like, it's the Kennedy legacy, it's the Clinton legacy, it's the Bush legacy, it's the Obama, like, oh my gosh, dude, it's just insane. Because that's what Joe Biden is. Joe Biden is Obama legacy.
Right. That's all that is. So Trump is like, oh, your only hope, Obi-Wan Kenobi, which I actually I don't hate it. I see him becoming a better politician. I really do. I see him becoming a much more thoughtful, guarded, less vindictive person, unless he's just like, it's going to be a massive bait and switch when he gets elected. I mean, maybe.
I mean, I don't necessarily see any of those things the same way as you do. I don't think he's our only hope. I think he is a very convenient solution.
Yeah.
To fixing the world's problems in a short period of time.
Yeah.
If his advisors can convince him to do it. Right. And then it's 4 years. And the one thing that is really nice about Trump is that Trump is always looking out for Trump. Right. Donald Trump is predictable because it's all about Team Trump.
And that's a good thing because
for us as Americans,
he listens to what the population is saying. He's literally calling Joe Biden Genocide Joe. It means he sees all of those protests and he's like, oh, the people don't want this. I'm going to listen to that. Like, I want a leader that only cares about getting reelected, because in our system, that means he does what the people that would elect him want him to do.
What I'm saying is we want a leader.
Yeah.
All of the options for election are not leaders. Don't mistake Donald Trump with being a leader. Donald Trump is a pragmatist.
Right.
And he is a kind of pragmatist that's in line with the vision that our forefathers set out originally.
Right.
So when he's in office, it's unpredictable because it doesn't work like normal politics. But when you look at it through a lens of what's in Donald Trump's best interest, it makes more sense. Joe Biden is also not a leader. Joe Biden is he's a stooge for the Democratic National Convention, the same Democratic National Convention that tried to undermine Bernie Sanders and support Hillary Clinton until they got caught. Remember that?
Yeah.
Like, that's all politics.
Right.
That's not leadership.